Well, my experience with discipleship started back in the 80s, and when I became a believer in college, and there was a gal on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ who asked me to do a Bible study with her, with another gal, and it was pretty much learning what the gospel was. And so that's what led me to Christ, just learning those truths from the Word. And then being involved with that ministry in college, they challenged me after I had been involved with growing personally for a little bit to be challenged to pour my life into a group of gals. And so I got to do that, and it was just such a joy to be able to just help young gals, just say my age, maybe a little younger, but grow in their faith. And we just grew together because I wasn't that old either. But it was awesome. One thing that was kind of a negative, and it wasn't anybody's fault, it was just my wrong thinking, was that this is what discipleship looks like. And so when I got out of college, I was looking for something similar and looking for those young women that I could pour into. And just walking through life, that always wasn't there. And I remember at one time living in a place where I was going to a small church, and like a church plant, and there just didn't know who to pour into, and I had in my mind a very narrow idea of what that would look like, and God did not bring those young women into my life. And so instead what happened, the pastor, when I was kind of sharing my prayer request of wanting to pour into young women, he said, well, Lynn, remember, it's who God gives you. Just like Jesus said, the ones you gave me. He was praying to the Father in John 17, the ones you gave me. And he said, in the same way, God gives you people. And it may not be exactly what you're thinking it's going to look like. Well, sure enough, as I kept praying and looking and waiting on God for that, God raised up some young middle school kids that were looking to do things. And it ended up, we kind of were an informal little youth group because they didn't have that kind of opportunity in these really small towns. And so that ended up being a little bit of discipleship. And well, first they needed to know Jesus, so it started there. So it's just I just started to realize that God gets to decide how our discipling looks like. We're to be faithful, and we're to be looking for those who are willing to grow in their faith, want to grow in their faith, want accountability, but it may have a lot of different faces. Sometimes I've been with a young gal, and we would walk in the morning. We both wanted to walk. Well, that started to grow into, her heart started to really want to grow in her faith. And so at first it was just walking, and then it led to some Bible study. And sometimes it's just meeting for tea sometimes, and just seeing if God turns that into something more than just meeting for tea. So living life with one another and just sharing hearts, that's pretty much what I learned about discipleship.